My grandmother will be 90 years old next month. I mean, she is just the epitome of a 90-year-old grandma, right? I mean, she spends her days in her recliner working on her word find book. She watches her shows, the same shows every day, every week. Spends time rooting on her favorite baseball team. She gets up in the morning and has the same exact breakfast every day. Cereal, a little bowl of cereal, a cup of coffee with just a touch of cream. To say that my grandmother lives a predictable life is an understatement in more than one way. You see, on the outside, she's pretty healthy. I mean, physically, she's pretty well off. For the most part, she takes care of herself and pretty much makes her breakfast and her lunch every day. She shuffles around the house and kind of does her thing. I mean, from the outside looking in, she's your typical grandmother. But if you spend any time at all with my grandmother, you quickly realize that not everything is as it should be. You see, her mind is just riddled with disease. She repeats herself constantly at night. She checks the locks over and over, sometimes more than a dozen times. She asks the same questions, and within just a few minutes, she'll have the same conversation with you multiple times. Sometimes she forgets what day of the week it is. Sometimes she even forgets my name. You know, I've introduced my children to her by name countless times, on countless occasions. Every morning and every night you have to convince her that she hasn't yet taken her medicine, because you see, in her mind, she's already taken it. A few times each year, my wife and kids and I move out of our house for a week or maybe even just a weekend, and we move into my mom's house to help take care of my grandmother. Each day this week, I've found myself in the kitchen making my grandmother's morning coffee and laying out her cereal bowl and her coffee cup and getting everything ready before she wakes up in the morning. As I stood in the kitchen the other morning, I was reflecting on the previous night's conversation that I'd had with my grandmother about how many children I had and where I lived and what I did for a living and what my wife's name was and what my children's names were, and a whole host of other very familiar questions. If you've never dealt with someone who has a disease in their minds, it can be really trying. You know, it's not difficult to see how someone could lose their patience pretty quickly. The other night, I found myself in that exact place. I mean, I had answered the same question like 100 times. It had been a long day and I was tired, and the last thing that I wanted to do was answer the same question over and over and over. I was pushing towards that breaking point when I noticed something that changed things for me. I noticed something in my grandmother's eyes. It was a look of honesty. It was a genuineness. I mean, although she had asked those same questions dozens of times already, it was as if she was asking for the very first time. As I waded through this realization, I was struck by the possibility that maybe this is how God feels towards us, His children. I mean, how many times do you and I come back to God with the same confessions? How many times do we come back to God with the same questions and the same confusion over and over and over again? I mean, doesn't God get tired of hearing the same thing from us? I mean, aren't we sometimes trying God's patience when we continue to bring the same complaints and the same groans back to Him over and over? And then I thought of what David said in Psalm 51. He says, "The sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, O God." Another version says, my sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. You, God, will not despise. I mean, that's the ticket, right? God will never despise us when we come back to him, even for the 100th time with an honesty, when we come back with a broken spirit. See, what I began to see in my grandmother's eyes is exactly what I hope and pray God sees in my eyes when I screw up. What I see in her eyes is a pure heart. She wasn't asking questions with any sort of ill motive. She wasn't trying to pester me. She was asking every question with a pure and broken heart, as if for the very first time.